These are the times that try men's souls. The summer soldier and the sunshine patriot will, in this crisis, shrink from the service of his country. But he that stands it now deserves the love and thanks of man and woman. Thomas Paine, The American Crisis, December 19th, 1776.
America has had many crises since the winter of 1776, though none so bleak as that first one. We're in a crisis now, caused by a falling away from the principles of 1776.
The immediate way to understand the American crisis is the fact that the government is at the point of becoming an unlimited government. I mean, goodness, it's about to bankrupt the richest country in the history of man.
It is a crisis unlike any one that is previously met because it is self-inflicted and it is wholly avoidable.
America has been in a slow-motion emergency since progressivism began to erode our constitutional foundations.
We are the last best hope of the world, and we're in, to my mind, a very, very unfortunate period of turning our back on first principles.
We have to fight for our liberty, and if we don't have a rebirth in learning and liberty, we're going to lose it.
Any political renewal in the United States will start from, be based on, the two great documents, the Declaration and the Constitution, which means it begins with the study of those.
In the mind of the Founding Fathers, what is the responsibility of government?
And because our college has never forgotten those principles, never abandoned that task, we're going to help provide that spark.
The Founding Fathers, through the Declaration of Independence, held that all men are created equal. They're endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among those are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Let's try to figure out what those things meant. Yes?
In the USA, we were founded on universal principles, and the answer key, if you will, for those principles is the Declaration of Independence.
The explicit purpose of government is to preserve those rights from any intrusions of government on that individual.
Yes, ma'am.
That's what the role of government does. It doesn't give us a right. We have our natural, inherent rights from God, and the government is there to protect those for us.
I think the most important word in the Declaration is secure. Governments are instituted among men to secure their rights, not give us rights. The rights pre-exist government.
Inspired by the ideals of America's founding, a small group of ministers started a college out on what was then the frontier.
Hillsdale was founded in 1844 by a bunch of New England preachers moving out on the edge of civilization. They started it with next to nothing. One of our founders went riding his horse for 2 years around Michigan and Indiana and Illinois and Ohio and Wisconsin. We still have the list of the people who gave $3 and $5 at a time and came back with $25,000, a princely sum.
From the beginning, they were guided by the principles of the Declaration that all would be welcome in the pursuit of the life of the mind, regardless of gender and regardless of race.
We think it may be the first institution in history, anywhere, anytime, any kind of institution, with a charter that says we'll take our student body without regard to race, sex, or national origin.
That's what civil rights leaders of the 60s aimed for. If you said to Dr. King, 50 years hence, what would you like the society to be like? I suspect he could look at Hillsdale and say, I'll take that.
Being lovers of freedom, the founders of Hillsdale College were deeply involved in the slavery crisis and had a lot to do with the founding of the party that elected Abraham Lincoln president. The platform on which Abraham Lincoln was elected president of the United States was written in the main by 2 Hillsdale College professors.
So Lincoln said in the Gettysburg Address, 77 years ago, our fathers brought forth on this continent a new nation conceived in liberty and dedicated to the proposition that all men are created equal. Where would he have taken his instruction from ideas of liberty? Yes, sir, Mr. Brooks.
Well, he would have gotten the idea of liberty and the United States being conceived in liberty from the Declaration of Independence.
At the time, there were people arguing that your rights came from things like your race or your status in society. But Lincoln's argument was that it came from your status as a human being.
Yes, sir.
During the Revolution, we claimed that all men were created equal. In the Civil War, we fought to prove that.
Walking the campus with Dr. Arnn, he stops in front of the monument and he says, when the Civil War broke out, every male student left Hillsdale to enlist.
The Battle of Gettysburg would have gone differently if there hadn't been about 30 or 40 boys from Hillsdale College in the worst place in the battlefield. And by the way, we didn't make those boys go. We taught them to love freedom, and they rallied to its defense.
The next major challenge to these principles, the principles of the founding, emerged in the late 19th century: progressivism.
Woodrow Wilson, elected president in 1912, became the first president to criticize the American founding, which he did root and branch. It was not a peripheral criticism. He said the founders may have been right in their simple era, but we complex modern people with our complex modern nation know that limited government's a mistake. Therefore, the separation of powers is a mistake. Therefore, the idea that government exists solely to protect pre-existing rights is not nearly ambitious enough.
And he thought that his political science was far in advance of the founders, and that we needed a kind of refounding of the country's politics in order to stay abreast of the times.
I think Woodrow Wilson's thoughts make sense at first glance, because he was saying, how can a document, or how can two documents from the 1700s govern us in an age where now we have airplanes, we have cars? And I think it makes sense in that regard, but when you think about the fact that human nature has not changed.
What Wilson is saying is essentially the exact opposite, that these things need to adapt and change over time in a sense that they are not eternal.
Progressives believe that there are superior intellects and that superior intellects ought to help and sometimes coerce their fellow human beings into a better state of perfection. They're all about changing you and me, and they are not about unchanging truths and natural rights. They're about the perfectibility of the human species. Very dangerous to believe in that, and they do.
The Wilsonian tradition went from there to today, where it's enthroned, as it were, in the halls of Congress and in power. The progressives went from Woodrow Wilson to the presidency of his former Assistant Secretary of the Navy, Franklin Roosevelt, to Franklin Roosevelt's young protege from Texas, young Congressman Lyndon Johnson, next to be president, to the fourth transformative progressive president, Barack Obama.
As government continued to expand, inevitably it intruded into higher education. Successive administrations issued ever more onerous regulations, forcing colleges to comply if they took federal money, which Hillsdale never had. Then the government tightened the noose.
In the Carter administration, we heard from the Department of Health, Education, and Welfare. They said, we realize you don't take any direct aid to the college from the federal government, but your students are getting aid like the GI Bill. Because of that, we get to regulate you comprehensively. Whatever we want, hundreds of pages of stuff, you have to comply. We sued them, and the suit went all the way to the Supreme Court, and we lost. So to be free from government intrusion, we have refused all federal funding, direct or indirect.
A heavy hand of liberalism would have been brought to bear on education at Hillsdale, both in terms of the content of the student body, but eventually in terms of who's hired for the faculty, what is being taught in the classroom. There really is you would be making a bargain with the devil if you had conceded an inch to them on this question. And to Hillsdale's credit, it did not concede an inch.
Well, a college is an expensive thing to run, and most of our competitors are getting 30% of what they call student revenues from the government, and so we make that up. And we make that up by hundreds of thousands of people have been generous with our college.
My mother died, left me a fortune. What better way than to help people go to Hillsdale?
Wow, that's incredible.
Unlike the distant federal government, Hillsdale's donors know the students they support.
I'm working my way through college, and I'm just really, really grateful. And my parents every day are so grateful as well.
And I appreciate the letters I get from you.
Good,
I
good.
really enjoy my highlight of my week.
Oh, good. I'm so glad.
Each one of these bubbles is full of the gas methane.
With its hard-won independence, Hillsdale is free to pursue truth and defend liberty.
Where are we going to go from here? What do we want the college to be like in 10 years?
The center of gravity will have shifted. What is now an exciting on-campus phenomenon will be recognized nationwide.
Because of its unique mission, Hillsdale has drawn major international leaders to its campus and events. The best of these speeches are put into a publication called Imprimis, which reaches millions of people nationwide.
I heard of it through a friend of mine who was, I think, the first conservative I ever met, and so he gave me a copy of Imprimis.
I need to make a switch on the October Imprimis.
My journey to a new political understanding took a great deal of time and a certain amount of salubrious pain. I was impressed, first of all, by the exactitude of the writing in Imprimis. It was academic in the best sense, as it attempted to take one back to first principles and to state them cogently.
Hi. Good morning, Miss Lewis. Could you tell me a bit about your Graduate School of Statesmanship?
This is the first graduate school at Hillsdale. Its MAs and PhDs in politics will spread Hillsdale's learning to universities and other institutions across the nation.
You'll be focusing mostly on the first principles of American constitutionalism and the fate of those principles over time.
It gives a degree in the great books that are necessary to understand the American Revolution and politics and man in general.
They keep saying all we need is more regulation. It seems like
The
government.
Kirby Center in Washington, D.C. brings Hillsdale students to the Capitol for classes and internships. It also offers educational programs for Washington policymakers.
It's in the belly of the beast, speaking truth to power. It's a kind of reverse missionary work in which from the provinces you send missionaries to the center rather than the other way around, and that's because they're most needed in the center.
Hello and welcome to Constitution 201, Hillsdale's online course on the Constitution.
Hillsdale offers free online classes for citizens nationwide who want to learn.
What evidence do you have that it's possible to recover the older understanding of the Constitution?
Historical parallel would be Lincoln, who did just this. He showed that it was
Their
possible.
first Constitution course with 200,000 people signed up to listen to the great scholars of Hillsdale really, I think, surprised me and surprised everyone else that there was that kind of hunger for that kind of serious but very winsome learning.
Please join us next week.
In every major crisis since the middle of the 19th century, including the Civil War, our college has played an important part, and always the same part. We are faithful to the things we were founded to do, and they are just like the things that the country was founded to do.
And it sounds odd to say that this little college in this little corner of southeastern Michigan can lead a renewal, but it can.
See you then. One thing that has made me the most excited about learning, I think, is looking at history and seeing the ideas that have shaped our own country. And that is what our purpose is here, to become men and women of character who make a difference in this country.
That we're making here.
The lesson is lesson of Hillsdale. Let's create a more just society. What guides do we have? Oh, I get it. Let's go back to the Constitution. Let's share these basic texts.
The threads that run through these books will run through my own life and beyond. When I'm not here anymore, there's something of value that continues on. I think that's what's so beautiful about it.
Hillsdale is producing a generation of missionaries for liberty. And that's a very good thing for a world that's been long starved for that.
We do it to produce a small leavening minority that will radiate through the whole republic.
We can take that Greco-Roman and Judeo-Christian heritage and see how America was founded upon those ideals. And then we are stewards of that education today. And so as we leave Hillsdale, we take with us these ideas and we rise to self-government through education.
The college has ever been faithful to its founding principles, which are sound learning, knowing the beautiful and the good and the true things in support of civil and religious freedom and intelligent piety. That's what the college is for. It's still for that.